Welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. This is the first video in a new series looking at Python programming. So Python is a programming language which enables you to do all sorts of good things. But in order to translate from any other language, we need what's called an interpreter. Okay, the same as when you're studying maybe a language such as French or Spanish. To translate from another language, you might be the interpreter to translate from, for example, a different language into something which you can understand. The same applies with Python. We need an interpreter to translate from code into something which we can understand. Now, there are loads of interpreters out there, such as, for example, there is the Python idle or IDE, which you can use. There's another one called the Mu editor, MU editor. But for today, we're going to use Replit, R-E-P-L-I-T. We're going to use Replit. Okay, it's free to sign up, and you can sign in with both a Google and Microsoft School account as well if you wish to do so. So in here, all of our code goes into this section on the left-hand side here. And anything that we display, will be on the right-hand side over here. So it's always traditional when we start a new program in computer science. It's just a weird old nerdy tradition that whenever we have a new program, the first thing we ever do is we display a message that says, "Hello world." So that's what we're going to do. Okay. Now our key term to display a message is the print command. Okay. And we're going to say, "Hello world," if I can type correctly. Okay. Let's press run at the top, or we can press Control Enter. Now it's given us an error message here. Okay. Python generally is quite good at saying, "Hey, excuse me, I think you made a mistake, but I think this is what it is, and I think it's something around here." Okay. So always look for these little pointy up arrows, a bit like little hats, and then it'll often use quite big jargon terms here to tell you what the error is. Okay, but we'll work through it together. Now it's telling us it's somewhere around here, and it's saying missing parentheses in call to print. Did you mean print? And here we've got some brackets. Okay, parentheses are just a fancy word for brackets. So let's put some brackets around it. Okay, when you get an error message, always change one thing and then run it again. Okay, because that way we can refine whether we have or haven't fixed the problem. Okay, and actually in this case, by the fact that we've got a different error message, that tells us that we have fixed this one here. Okay, now it's saying invalid syntax. Okay, syntax refers to like the order or the way that our code is constructed. Okay, and it says perhaps you've got a comma. Now in this case, it actually isn't a comma, but it's something similar. In Python, we have what's called data types. Okay, different types of data, and in Python, anything which is just text, i.e. it's just words, we won't say to Python, this bit here, don't do anything with it, it's just text. Okay, we call that a string, and we define a string by putting inside speech marks. Okay, so this now says to Python, this bit here is code, print or display this message, and what's in here, because it's in speech marks, don't do anything weird with it, it's just text. Okay, let's press run. And here we go. We've printed our first word that says "Hello world." We can maybe copy and paste that into a second line and say, good morning to you. Let's run that again. And it will now run both lines of code. Okay, it's run line 1 and then line 2. Now we call this a sequence. Okay, a program will always run in sequence, i.e. it will do line 1 first, and then line 2, and then line 3. So it always runs the code in order. Okay, so sequence is your keyword. Now, going back to a program is quite simply a set of instructions. But even better, a set of instructions in a certain order. You might have heard the word algorithm before, and an algorithm is essentially a program. An algorithm is a set of instructions as well. But an algorithm could be, for example, maybe the instructions to a dance routine or a recipe. But again, with things like dance routines and recipes, those instructions need to be in a certain order. A program, again, is a set of instructions in a certain order, but this time in a programming language, which we're doing now. Let's create one last thing, which is a variable. Okay, so continuing our analogy where our algorithm or our program is maybe like a recipe, a set of instructions, we can think of variables as being like a bit like jars containing ingredients. Okay, each one's a container and it stores data. So a variable is just like a little jar on your shelf which can store ingredients or it can store data. Okay, so let's create one. For example, let's call it user. Okay, so imagine on our shelf or on the shelf in front of you, we've got a little jar called user. Okay, and the way in which we give it a value or give it some contents to go inside of our jar, we use the equal symbol. So whenever you see the equal symbol, that's your clue to tell you that whatever comes before it, that's the name of your variable. Okay, so always look for that equal symbol. And let's call it Mr. Smith. Okay, now we know and we remember from before, of course this is going to be just text, it's just words. We need to put it inside speech marks. Okay, now at the moment, if we run our program, nothing will actually happen. It will do the same as before. Okay, because we've got our variable, we've got our jar of ingredients sat there on the shelf, but we just haven't done anything with it yet. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to display the name Mr. Smith. Okay, now we always refer to the name of the variable, user, and not its contents. Okay, so we're going to say print, remember our brackets, and this time because we're referring to the variable and not a string, we're just going to say print user. Okay, and now it says Mr. Smith. Okay, now we can actually mix together strings and our variable. So we start a string, we'll say good morning, and we need to separate our string and our variable with a comma in the middle. Okay, so it should say hello world, good morning to you. It will see this here but not do anything with it, but this value, Mr. Smith, is stored inside user, so it will say good morning Mr. Smith. Let's try it, and there we go. Now one other thing to note, if we just change this to say user with a capital U, let's see what happens this time. It doesn't work. Okay, you'll often get this kind of error that says the name user is not defined. Okay, did you mean something else? Now variable names are case sensitive. Okay, by that I mean here we've got one in lowercase, but we've called it here in uppercase. So what it's saying here is saying in line 5, it doesn't know what this variable here user is. Okay, so it needs to be all in a lower case. Okay, give it a try for yourself and let me know how you get on.